In this demo, I will show you how to use a Kubeless function with PubSub. The first thing that we need to do is we need to install Kafka. You can use an existing Kafka installation, or if you don't have one yet, you can also use Kubeless to install a Kafka on your Kubernetes cluster. I have the commands ready in my README. Kafka installation. We're going to export the release to get the latest release, and then we're going to use kubectl create to install the Kubeless Kafka trigger, Kafka zookeeper.yaml. So Kafka needs also zookeeper, so that's why it will also install zookeeper. Let's have a look. kubectl get pods, all namespaces. It's installed in the Kubeless namespace. We have Kafka 0, still pending, and a Kafka trigger controller and a zookeeper. Back to the README, we can deploy a function. You can use Kubeless function deploy to deploy an uppercase function, which is also based on Node.js 6. I'm just going to copy paste these lines, and I'll then show you the Node example uppercase.js, which is just a simple function that will convert the input to uppercase. So you have the uppercase function, event and context are the arguments. We're going to define string, str. str equals to the event data, so the data that is passed in this event, and we're going to uppercase it. We're going to log it, and then we're going to return it. So let's deploy this function. Kubeless function ls uppercase. It's not ready yet, so if you do just ls without uppercase, we see all our deployed functions. So you have to wait a bit until this function is ready. This will spin up a pod again. So here is the uppercase pod. It's now initializing. Now we just launched an uppercase function, but it's not linked to anything. In the previous demo, I showed you how to link a function to the ingress controller, making it an HTTP function. Now I'll do the same, but then for Kafka. I have the command again in my README. It's two commands that we need. Kubeless trigger Kafka, we're going to create a test. The function selector is going to be created by Kubeless. So we created this function with Kubeless, and the function is called uppercase. And then the topic that needs to be triggered is uppercase. So in Kafka, you have topics, which is kind of a queue where you can send data to. And when data is sent to this topic, then our function will be triggered. So let's first enter this command. Kafka trigger test created in namespace default successfully. So now we have a trigger on our Kafka topic. Now we need to trigger this function by publishing some data to this topic. So to publish some data, you can also use Kubeless. Because this is Kafka, you don't need Kubeless. You can just have any mechanism, any tool, any software, any application that writes data to Kafka, and then this function will be triggered. But we don't really have any application writing to this topic, so we're just going to use Kubeless topic publish, topic uppercase, to publish some data to the topic. So this will publish some data to the Kafka topic. And the data that we're going to use is this message will be converted to uppercase. So let's enter this. We send this message to our Kafka topic. Let's try something more. This is a second message. And also I'm using T2 micro instances. So it's possible that we don't really have enough memory to run all these services. If you experience any issues, you can either increase the size of your instances or remove some previous functions to make sure that you don't run out of resources, you don't run out of memory. Let's have a look at our pods. We have the uppercase pod. Let's have a look at the logs. So we sent first, this message will be converted to uppercase, and we outputted, this message will be converted to uppercase, and this is a second message. Let's have a look again at this function. We have the node example uppercase function. So this event is an argument that was passed to the function. In event data, we have this message will be converted to uppercase, or the second one, this is a second message. So the function will be basically executed twice, one for this message and one time for this message. So we have one line of data in the event data. We convert it to uppercase and then we log it to the console of this container. And then we see here, this message will be converted to uppercase in uppercase letters. And this was basically posted by the trigger that we created for whenever there's data in our Kafka topic, then it will trigger our function, and then this function gets executed with this data attached to it so that we can convert this data. We don't really do anything with this data. We just output this data to the console here and we return a string. In reality, you store your result somewhere. Often you store your data again in another Kafka topic, for example, and then other applications can read the result from this topic and store it or display it to a user, for example, or send it to another app. The limitation here with Kubeless right now is that you can publish data to Kafka, and Kafka will then trigger your function. So you can capture data within your function, but your function cannot yet send data back to Kafka. You could write your own producer again in your function right here to then send data back. But that defeats the purpose of serverless, because serverless should really provide you with this framework where it's easy to send data to any of your services. So this is something that is pending. It's a feature that is pending where you can then return some data back to Kafka to another topic, for example. Right now, what you could do is you can, for example, send this string back to another function. Now that you have uppercased it, you could send it back to a function that stores it into a database, and then you could have another function that reads from the database whenever a user visits a web page. That's all possible. It's all up to you how evolved and difficult you make these functions. These are very simple functions. They don't do much. You can use MySQL, you can use an underlying database to store your results, to read your results to the user. With these mechanisms that are already available and with these runtimes that are available, you can already create some really useful applications. So that's it for this lecture. I hope you learned some useful information about serverless in this section. And this is really a nice way of getting this serverless architecture within Kubernetes. It is used already a lot in public cloud, and I'm sure it will only get more popular within Kubernetes.